Going on YouTube, Cole here back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be going over some of the best teams that you can use right now in Regulation G. So you made the decision to go to San Antonio this weekend and compete at the regionals, and you're just not really sure what to bring right now, and you're not even sure what you're going to be facing against. So hopefully we got you covered in today's video. We're going to give you a little bit of inspiration, so this way you can figure out what you want to use if you don't have a team already, and at the same time we can help a little bit with your prep by going over some of these squads that you should be expected to see at the regionals, and just overall in general. Right now in Regulation G, even if you're not competing, we've had a couple of regionals under our belts now, and we've had some big online tournaments. So now we can just take a step back and see just what exactly are the best squads for each restricted. So this way, maybe you can pick up on something if you're trying to progress even further. All right, so we'll go through each squad. We'll talk a little bit of how to play them and maybe how to play against them. So this way we can give you some understanding in terms of how to, adjust your team and maybe fix up your team building if you don't quite have the matchup that you need to have against some of these squads. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and start right here. All right, we'll start here with the first Miraidon team composition, and it's basically the World Championship team. And you just saw this win over this past weekend from William Bussolino. He took another regional with it. And basically, you've got Tailwind Whimsicott with Miraidon over here. So you're going to do a lot of damage with your choice specs, the Electro Drift, the Volt Switch potential against things that want to change terrain against you. So even if you bring your Rillaboom, they can always pivot out with something like Volt Switch and bring it in a future slot on the next opposing turn per se, right? Then you've got Whimsicott here with the Encore set with Light Screen. So that's going to be pretty good in terms of damage mitigation and disruption. You have Ferrigap that can give you Trick Room against some of the other Tailwind mirrors. And then that can also enable your own Iron Hands here, right? So again, with the Iron Hands, you're getting an attack boost because you have the Quark Drive. It gives you a decent Terapagos matchup. So if you are a Terapagos player, you got to watch out for the Iron Hands. And you also have to watch out for the Urshifu as well, because again, that's another fighting type that can click close combat into you. Sash Urshifu with Surging Strikes, very, very good, very, very solid. And then you get this nice Fire Water Grass core with the Ogerpon Heart Flame. And even if you bring your Rillaboom against these Miraidon teams, this is why they have the Ogerpon Heart Flame, because the Heart Flame does really, really well into the Rillaboom. You make it stronger, if anything, because you're bringing out grassy terrain, which means their Wood Hammers are hitting harder. They have IV Cudgel for big, super effective damage. And then at the same time, you always just have like redirection support to protect most of your allies over here if you want to play it that way. So, you've got the Tailwind stuff. You also have the balance stuff with you. This is why this team is still good even right now, because you have a lot of different tools for, depending on the matchup, it just does so well. The other variant is the Single Strike Urshifu instead over the Surging Strikes, but the team more or less plays the same way. Either way, the same kind of strats. You do have the Tailwind mode, and then you also have the balance mode with Ferrigap here. And again, with Ferrigap, you're denying priority moves. So like fake out stuff or sucker punches, and again, normal typing, in front of Calyrex is also really nice. You have foul play damage for the Ice Rider too. So this looks really good. And then of course the Single Strike just gives you a little bit more of a Shadow Rider matchup. Then you have other types of ideas. This is the Nielsen variant. So you can also play the Miraidon like this, where they're going to have Sneasler here to get a nice boost from the terrain, right? Because they have the Electric Seed. So that'll give you the defense boost, but more importantly, that'll activate on Burden, which means now you're going to get a big speed boost. And then at the same time, you've got the Gunk Shot, instead of the Dire Claw, because again, you can't put things to sleep in the electric terrain. So this time, the Sneasler is going to opt for a Gunk Shot. Then you also have Close Combat. Again, you are still a fighting type, so you can still click this move into other Terapagoses. And then you have Coaching here, which is very strong with something like Iron Hands here, because again, the Iron Hands is already getting a +1 attack in the terrain. Now you're making it stronger, with another +1 with Coaching, and you're boosting it its defenses, and it already has an Assault Vest for its special defense. So now this Iron Hands all of a sudden becomes relatively hard to remove. Now you also introduce Tornadus here with Terra Dark Pulse. So this also gives you another kind of matchup into Calyrex Shadow Rider. And then Ferrigap obviously does Ferrigap things with the Trick Room, Priority Denial, and the Foul Play into the Ice Rider. And then you still have Helping Hand, of course, that can make you do a little bit more damage with your allies here. So this is another way to play it. And then you've got the Agati variant, you know, with the Roar Furgrap and then the Iron Treads for the mirror. The Iron Treads is going to do a lot of damage, you know, especially with something like Steel Roller, where you basically, you know, you can just blow up and end terrain there. You've got high horsepower, you've got Rock Slide. The Iron Treads is a very hard-hitting mon, especially with this band, so don't underestimate it. But other than that, look, now you're also introducing Incineroar with Rocky Helmet, Terra Ghost. The Iron Hands is still coming here yet again, and now you still also have the Sash Urshifu here. So, you know, if you are a Miraidon player, they're gonna bring the Iron Treads into you, and then at the same time, you know, the single strike Urshifu, that's definitely always gonna come into your Shadow Rider matchup. Might even also bring Incineroar too. I definitely expect the Miraidon Instant Ursh to come into most Shadow Rider games. That last slot will just obviously be a filler. So, yeah, and you know, there's no Tailwind to this team, so you know, they still have the Furgraph at the same time, so you just have to be aware of that. The Roar is really nice both ways, whether you're trying to roar out, you know, someone trying to set up, or you could also use this on your own Miraidon. So if you click Draco Meteor, you know, you're -2, you're stuck in. So what you can do is after you click Draco, you can roar yourself out and bring something else in, and Miraidon can come back later at the end of the game and finish things off. So that's another use of Roar if you want to go that direction. But, you know, Fake Out plus Surging Strikes, or Fake Out in this case with Wicked Blow, is just always going to be good. So you have options here. And then look, you have double Fake Out technically. So this one plays a little bit slower, plays a little bit more of a balanced approach here, which is fine. You know, if you want to play in towards that idea, you can, because, you know, these other Miraidon teams, they're a little bit more hyper offense. But either way, these are the 4 best Miraidon teams right now. There are some other variants, of course, but right now these are the 4 that have had the most success within the bigger online tournaments. So if you still need a Miraidon team, any of these 4 would be fine. And if you're playing against Miraidon, couple things to note, you know, you can bring your Rillaboom to change terrain. They still will have tools against you, but, you know, you still want to have it to, you know, help you manage Miraidon's damage. You know, that's one thing. You can pressure with Chenpao with something like Ice Spinner and remove terrain. You can also do that too. You have the ideas to bait the Miraidon into going into Terra Fairy, so this way remove its dragon typing, so you can hit it with the Fire, Water, Grass stuff if you need to. You can pressure it with dragon type moves of your own. If you have your own Raging Bolts, you know, you can capitalize on the terrain and still try and do bigger damage right back. If you just try and outspeed it, that's also another good idea to do. And, you know, try to make it lock into a move that, you know, it doesn't really want to lock into, especially if you have a ground type. So if you have something like Landorus or something like Ursaluna, that's going to be pretty good into Miraidon, because if they lock into an electric move, they just don't hit you, right? Because you have immunity, and they have to switch out if they want to reset their lock with the choice item. So if you got a ground type, that's very good. If you got a terrain setter or terrain changer, like, you know, Chenpaos or Rillabooms, that's also really good. You can also mitigate its damage with something like, you know, Scarf Chiyu with Snarl. You can do something like that if you want to. But those are some of like the easy ways that you can do to, you know, manage the Miraidon a little bit. So this type of Terapagos team was more successful in the VR tournaments here. Basically, it's the protect the king idea. So you've got Calm Mind / Substitute over here, and the idea is that you have double Fake Out here with the redirection support to try and set up the Calm Mind on the Terapagos. So, you know, you can always click Substitute too, you know, against the Trick Room teams, and stall out those Trick Room teams, because you just alternate Substitute and Protect. And when you do that, you've already burned 2 turns of Trick Room, and then your Substitute is still active, right? So they have to double tap you if they want to even try and reach you, because otherwise you're just gonna hang on to your Substitute and just click Protect again the following turn. But basically, you know, Incineroar and Rillaboom here, you know, they're gonna always come to try and set up this Calm Mind. You know, Rillaboom very good at changing terrain. For the Miraidon matchup, like we've been mentioning, the Incin just is overall very strong in restricted formats, especially when there's like higher power creep. You're able to mitigate a lot of the damage, you know, with stuff like Knock Off, removing key items, Will-O-Wisp, burning those physical targets, and then Parting Shot, you know, stat drops, and then repositioning into another Fake Outer or maybe a Redirector, and then you could just keep trying to set up your Calm Mind. So you can keep doing that with your Incin. Urshifu, good solid physical breaker on the team. Fake Out plus Surging Strikes are good pins. And then Fluttermane here does also have a pretty decent role here with Icy Wind and Thunder Wave. So, you know, some good speed control. You can break Sash this way. Thunder Wave, very punishing too. And you can't reset Thunder Wave, right? Because once you paralyze them, that's it. They take that with them. Even if they want to switch it out, they're still paralyzed. So that's good speed control too. And one paralysis hacks is all it takes to win a game. So you can do that with the Flutter Mane here. It gives you a decent matchup into Urshifu because, again, Urshifu wants to come into Terapagos and deal super effective fighting damage. But if you bring your Fairy type, that's going to help you at the same time here. But these are like, this is like a relatively slow, balanced way of playing the Pagos. We've seen this before, even with something like the Shadow Rider teams. They just want to be able to cycle their fake outs and redirectors and click Nasty Plot or draining his Calm Mind stuff. So they can do that. But Terapagos also does that here. This one more or less the same thing. So now you have the Intimidate here with the Instant still. And then the Amoonguss also will give you redirection support, just like an Ogerpon. You now have a little bit more of a Trick Room matchup. So you can also do it like this. And, you know, this is your classic defensive backbone in VGC with the Incineroar and the Amoonguss. Because you got Intimidate, Fake Out, Redirection Support, Damage Mitigation, and Disruption. Because, again, you have Sport Pressure, you have Will-O-Wisp. These two are very, very good at, you know, balancing matches because of what they can do to cripple the opponent, right? We've been mentioning Urshifu, you know, since the first team, right? It's just really good. Gives you that Fire, Water, Grass core on this team. And then Flutter Mane and Raging Bull, like, again, the Volt Switch for positional purposes, the Electro Web speed control, the Icy Wind and Thunder Wave speed control here. And then sometimes they'll even go for Taunt to try and stop your setup or stop your Trick Room, and then they just forego Protect. But other than that, it's still the same way. Try and protect the king and let it set up with these Calm Minds. So, you know, one thing you have to expect, especially if you're like a Kyogre player or Koraidon player, they're going to wait to trap you and Terra at the right time to take away your weather. So sometimes you're going to have to keep pivoting in and out and maybe bait that Terra. So this way you can win the weather war in the end. That's one thing. You have to bring your fighting type. You know, it's going to do really well into Terapagos, especially if it's the physical kind. And if you're a Bongos player, again, like, you know, Urshifu, Zamazenta, these are all things you don't want to see. Iron Hands technically as well. This is why you bring stuff like Amoonguss to help you resist the body press stuff from a Zamazenta. And also, you know, the other fighting moves like a close combat per se. And then Rocky Helmet will break Sash against those Urshifus, so that's going to be really good. And then you could potentially end them once their Sash is broken there. You get a nice Trick Room matchup with this, so expect the Amoonguss to come into your games if you are playing Trick Room. Same thing with Instant, right? You know, just being able to mitigate all that damage with not only just in the Intimidate support, but the knockoff pressure and the parting shots, while still having to face Spore, right? So that's another thing that you have to think about there. But overall, I also like Raging Bolt here. Again, just a bulky special attacker that can just calm things down, you know, with stuff like Thunderclap, pin the Urshifu slot, right? If they want to try and go for that close combat, you can Thunderclap them, deal super effective damage, unless they're the Dark variant, which is why we have the Flutter Mane over here. Again, the pivot potential to keep cycling in and out and keep your Amoonguss healthy if you have to. That's also like really, really cool from the Raging Bolt there. So, but overall, you know, not too many Pagos teams. There are the Tailwind variants that go choice specs. I'm not so sure on those yet. We're gonna have to see some results before I actually like add it onto this type of list. But right now, these two have had the most success from the online tours. So if you want a Terapagos squad, you can do this idea with the Instant Rillaboom Ursh with Ogerpon, or you can do this idea with Incineroar and Amoonguss with Flutter Mane and Bolt. I think both squads are pretty good. They're a little bit different, obviously, but they both do the job that they're supposed to do in trying to support and set up the Terapagos. All right here. So now the Calyrex Shadow Rider teams, and this is the big one, right? This is the Dondozo Wheezing variant. So again, the whole idea with the Wheezing is they're trying to chip away at your HP, okay? They're gonna set up the Poison Gas on both your mons. They're gonna click Toxic Spikes. So this way, when you pivot in and out, things are gonna take a lot of chip damage. And the whole point is that after several turns have gone by, your Pokemon are no longer at full HP. The Calyrex can come in and just click Astro Barrage and clean up, right? That's one way to play it. Then the other mode is, things have chipped so much that the Urshifu can also pick them up too. So after, 20-30% poison damage, Surging Strikes is actually within range of picking up a KO there. The Indeedee, again, that's just for like your Trick Room matchup. That's to deny, Thunderclaps into Urshifu, Sucker Punch into Calyrexes. So Indeedee pretty important here. Then you've got the Dondozo Tatsugiri stuff, right? And then this is, again, the Droopy Tatsugiri. You're going for the order ups, for the body press damage, which is, again, also pretty good in Terapagos. But this Dondozo is going to be harder to break just because you don't even care about Intimidates. You're just clicking body press every now and then. And you can also just kind of try and set this up here by just, using the Indeedee here. You can go with Helping Hand stuff. If you don't even have to bring in Tatsugiri immediately, right? You can just use Helping Hand, Surging Strikes here, Helping Hand, Astral Barrage. And in the Weezing, same thing. You can start strong with the Weezing, just setting up all this stuff with the spikes and the gas. And then just let Calyrex, Dondozo, or Urshifu clean things up after all the poison has taken its toll, right? Then you have this variant, the one with Roaring Moon. This is also the one that has started to rise a little bit. But you can do it like this with Iron Hand. So now you get Fake Out onto the team. You've got Tailwind support with your squad here. So now with Roaring Moon being weak to fighting types, you can swap in your Calyrex, and that fighting type does 0 damage because Calyrex is a ghost. So, Dark Ghost typing always has pretty good synergy with each other for that reason. The Dondozo is the same thing, with the Droopy variant, going for those order up body presses, and then just eventually just trying to one-shot you. So just watch out. Bring your Amoonguss if you have to. The Iron Hands here, again, another strong Pokemon that, can just function, whether it's Trick Room or Tailwind, it doesn't really matter. The Iron Hands is always going to be good. This Calyrex also has Taunt, by the way, so sometimes they may run some tech moves like this, Hyper Beam / Taunt. So just be on the lookout for that. If it was the Indeedee variant, it's probably just also Expanding Force, but this one has no Indeedee. So yeah. And then Knockoff, again, just being able to remove key items is going to be important. Just with the Dondozo stuff, bring your Clear Smog user, bring your Clear Smog Amoonguss, bring your Haze user like Chenpao. Chenpao still gets Haze, by the way. So if you want to do that, you can definitely do it. You can bring other Prankster Mons that have Haze, ideally, if you want to prepare for that Dozo matchup. But besides that, you can pressure the Weezing, the Calyrex, and the Roaring Moon, as long as you don't have to deal with these guys. But that's why they're on the team, to make sure that they're annoying as much as possible, especially all this poison gas damage. You don't want to be dealing with that. You want to try and remove that ASAP. The Calyrex just obviously is going to put a lot of pressure on you, especially with this Life Orb variant. Just make sure you don't give up your win cons immediately trying to deal with all of this stuff, because if you do, then it just makes that Calyrex Strato Rider harder to beat, of course. Then you've got the same way as the Pagos idea, the Protect the King idea with the Life Orb / Calm Mind, Draining Kiss stuff. If you want to go that direction, you can, but same thing, double Fake Out pressure with redirection support. Raging Bolt Urshifu here. Again, the most boring team that you can play is probably just this, but it's effective. It does what it's supposed to do, and people are using it for a good reason. This one uses the Clefairy Friend Guard comp set. So you have Follow Me. As a fairy type, you can redirect some of the dark types that are normally super effective into you. You can use it in that form. You can redirect ghost damage into you. That's also really nice. You also give yourself a Trick Room matchup, with Sing. Just being able to click that because you're faster than the Ice Rider in Trick Room is always going to be funny. So Sing, if it lands, is going to be great. They lose so much momentum that way if they do that, because you just click Trick Room for nothing, and the thing that you want to get involved is actually asleep. The Bolt here is a standard Bolt set with Clap, Bolt, and Meteor there, so no surprises here. But again, just double Fake Out and redirection support with the Clefairy giving Friend Guard. No real surprises there. So those are like the 4 best Calyrex teams. You're either playing with Dondozo or you're playing the balance way without Dondozo. I think those are your 2 best options. I have seen ways to make it more aggressive with like Tailwind, Expanding Force stuff with Indeedee too. You can definitely play it that way. In fact, I think our Rental plays that way because we've also added a Chiyu to that team for a little bit more damage, in terms of drop things Spadef. So consider that as well. But, if you don't want to play the Calyrex that way, you can definitely play it amongst one of these 4. All right, next we'll look at the Calyrex Ice Rider teams, and we'll start here. This is the this is the previous team from the World Championships. This is Yuta Ishigaki's team. So you've got the Pelipper mode here. So the Pelipper does a few things on this squad. Obviously, you have the Rain mode, which does enable the Urshifu over here. You are also Life Orb, which means you can put out some damage too, right? Weather Ball and Hurricane, they are going to hurt. You do have access to Helping Hand here, so you could easily just like Helping Hand Urshifu, Helping Hand Calyrex here, and Helping Hand technically with everything else here. And then of course the Wide Guard support. And then when you bring out the Rain, you know, you're taking away the fire weakness more or less for the Ice Rider, which is really good. And then at the same time, what you're also doing is enabling the Landers here as well. So you've got the Pelipper enabling the Urshifu. You could also enable this Landers because again, Sand Seer Storm is 100% accurate in the Rain. So Pelipper has a lot of roles here, which is really cool. Then you've got the Amoonguss for a little bit more stabilization, a little bit of a defensive backbone to be able to Spore, redirect things. And like we've said in some of our other videos, the Calyrex Amoonguss combination right now is looking really good because you have Spore and Glacial Lance Pressure. And there's not too many that want to be able to take both, right? Then the Clear Smog is going to be able to remove buffs like, you know, the Dondozo stuff, the Nasty Plot, Setup, the Calm Mind shenanigans. You get to remove all of that when you have Clear Smog. The Valiant, yeah, again, just like the Pelipper, can be a little bit of an offensive threat, but a little bit more so on the defensive end as well with support. So what you can do is you can coach the Urshifu or the Calyrex, give it a nice buff. So this way Surging Strikes and Glacial Lances are just, you know, picking up left and right. You also get this secondary Wide Guard support with the Pelipper. Booster Energy will give you some speed control, of course, because you get to go first. And then the Spirit Break is a great move in terms of mitigating a lot of that special attack damage that you might have to do against some other special attack mons. So this is one way to mitigate damage. And then again, the coaching gives you that defense boost, right? So you can mitigate physical damage in that sense. And then you have the Encore Tech, right? Which you can use to, you know, kind of neutralize a lot of the opponent's support moves, which is always really good. You get to lock them in, and then they have to potentially switch in and, you know, just to try and reset all of that. So I do like this variant of Calyrex. It was popular, you know, towards the beginning of the format when people were still using Ice Rider teams and trying to figure out where they are right now in the meta. But since then, you know, more people are trying other stuff. This one is also a more recent variant that was also, you know, towards the summer of the World Championships. You have this Aleki Landers combination, again with the Electro speed control. You are faster than the Shadow Rider, and that's important, right? So even though this isn't Dynamax and this isn't, you know, Max Aleki clicking Max Lightning, you still have some ideas with this team, especially with the Landers and the Ogerpon here along with Ursh. So you can click Electro Web, get speed control, and then from there, you know, Surging Strikes is going to pick up things. Or even Ogerpon and Landers, they can also pick up things because again, Ogerpon's pretty fast too. So if you can get off that E-Webs, that's also going to be nice. You can also technically, you know, Volt Switch and then Trick Room and then just bring in something else to potentially sweep there. So you could even do like Regieleki for that idea where you can Volt Switch and Trick Room, bring in the Calyrex next turn. Or you can even lead the Calyrex and click Volt Switch there and then Trick Room and then bring something else in, right? So you can do that. Otherwise, you know, Urshifu Ogerpon combination is what they like to do. And then the Landers, again, does give you that Miraidon matchup that you want because sometimes they can struggle a little bit, this team. But if you have that Landers idea, then it can do okay, right? And this is also pretty good against the Steel and Fire types that can give Calyrex a little bit of trouble, like the Zamazenta, for example. So Landers looking pretty good here. And then after that, you have some similar ideas still, you know, with Pelipper and then Ogerpon here, Urshifu. But this one involves Raging Bolt and Rillaboom. Now, the Rillaboom will give you that terrain advantage to be able to play a little bit better into the Miraidon ideas. You don't have the Landers on this one, but you still get Pelipper, Urshifu stuff. So that's good too. And this time the Ursh has coaching, right? So you can coach the Calyrex. You can even coach the Ogerpon too. And then the Rillaboom is also another good coaching target that you can consider. So this Urshifu can be, you know, either offensive or supportive. You can also just simply try and set up Trick Room, you know, just lead the Ogerpon, Calyrex, redirect, and then, you know, just click Trick Room. This is also pretty good into Incineroars sometimes. And then Raging Bolt, again, with Calyrex, you get that Bolt Beam idea. But again, another strong special attacker in Trick Room that can deal a lot of good solid damage. So then after that, then this is where we get into the Rio Regional. from the previous weekend, and then we started to see this stuff, with the Amoonguss, the Landorus again, and the Raging Bolt here. So a little bit more of a balanced idea. And then you have Instant Urshifu here. So you still get this Fire Water Grass Core with Instant Ursh and Amoonguss. You get Intimidate, Fake Out, Redirection support. You get a Breaker here with the Urshifu. The Dark one too, if you want to do that. Actually, this is the Dark one, right? So it's not quite the Fire Water Grass Core, but you can do it like this. This gives you a little bit more of a Shadow Rider matchup. But again, the Amoonguss, along with the Instant, for the classic Trick Room combination, and then with the Calyrex here, to be able to just Parting Shot into something, and then the Calyrex can keep clicking Glacial Lances and whatnot. So yeah, you'll see definitely some Calyrex Amoonguss teams for sure, because again, this did do well recently at the previous Rio Regionals, the same weekend as Birmingham. So be ready for these guys. But ultimately, the name of the game is they want to set up Trick Room, okay, but they don't have to, because they have also other ways of controlling the game that doesn't involve Trick Room. They can always redirect, they can always Fake Out and Surging Strikes, or they can also just go for pins with the Landorus idea, with Regieleki and Urshifu at the same time. So they're not completely reliant on Trick Room. So you do have to watch out with how they want to play these Calyrex Ice Rider teams. But at least at first glance, you want to say like, okay, this is the Trick Room squad. He wants to set it up. How can I stop it, or how can I stall it? Okay, so there's lots of ideas that you can do to do that. We're not going to go through everything here, but again, if you can utilize your Fake Outs and cycle them relatively well, you can stall out those Trick Rooms. If you have Substitute, then you can Substitute and Protect, and then that's already like 2 turns gone from the Trick Room. So as long as you can do that, yeah, you're in a good shape there. You're going to have to also try and plan to get around the Redirector. So whether it be the Amoonguss or whether it be the Sturdy Ogerpon, which needs 2 hits to get off the board, you have to also consider that. So that's something, and then, just something like Urshifu can do really well into the Calyrex, but this is also why they're going Terra Poison, to be able to risk all of that, and also technically Terra Fairy at the same time. So just be aware of that, all things considered. So, but those are some options to consider if they don't have the Terra Fairy, Terra Poison idea. Okay. Next, we'll take a look at Zamazenta over here, and then we'll also look at the Kyogre squads. All right, so with the Zamazenta teams, especially with the Chien-Pao idea, again, you're just, doing so much damage with Body Press. You have a pretty good matchup into Terapagos, so you do relatively decently into the Ice Rider as well. The only thing you need is something for the Shadow Rider matchup, right? And sometimes Miraidon can also give you a little bit of trouble, but this is why you have all these tools to help you deal with the Miraidon. So you've got Rillaboom Terrain Control, you have Chien-Pao that can outspeed it and hit it for a super effective Ice move, force out that Terra into either Terra Fairy, which you can then click Heavy Slam into. If you want to go for that kind of pin, you can always do Flutter Mane Chi-Yu stuff with this team. Flutterfish, get speed control with Icy Wind, and then let Chi-Yu pick up something with some, Overheat or Dark Pulse / Heat Wave, whatever. Snarl, Scarf Snarl into those fast special attackers is very devastating. So if you can do that, then that's also looking really good. And again, the Amoonguss defensive backbone is just really, really good. And the Sludge Bomb is, that's a very standard tech choice there. You might even opt for Clear Smog if you want to improve your Dozo matchup a little bit, but you got Rillaboom Chien-Pao stuff, so you can always do harder hitting Grassy Glides, harder hitting Wood Hammers because of Sword of Ruin. Same thing here, harder hitting Body Presses overall. Zamazenta is really good right now, just because of what you don't care about Intimidate, right? You're just using your defensive stat. The Heavy Slam is just for those pins, where if they want to go Terra Fairy to resist the Body Press, now the Heavy Slam Steel move is going to hit them relatively hard. So all in all, this is already a pretty solid team, and it's one that has had a lot of success thus far. The other idea is to do still the Chien-Pao idea, but also go with the Entei route, which again means you can go for Sacred Fire, big damage, and burn something. You can go E-Speed, Terra Normal, Choice Band, which means you can one-shot a couple things, and then with that normal typing, you have immunity to Astral Barrage from the Calyrex. You can do that. And here you still have this Urshifu Rillaboom idea with Fake Out Surging Strikes. Gives you that nice solid Fire Water Grass core. The Flutter Mane, helps you maintain a little bit of control here with Icy Wind support. So you got Fake Out here, you've got speed control a little bit with Icy Wind, and you have a lot of priority over here. Okay, and then Zamazenta again, with that wide guard support is going to help this team not have to worry about spread moves or, you know, glacial lances or astral barrages, and instead force them to click suboptimal single target moves, right? So these are like the main two Zamazenta teams right now. Now, there are other ways that you can play Zamazenta. I've seen the Tailwind ideas with Tornadus. I think those are also pretty good, but those results are like a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes they do relatively well, other times they don't do that well. Whereas these two squads, they're always like consistently getting solid results, which is good, right? You always want to go for consistent squads rather than like inconsistent stuff, of course, right? So the Zam teams are really good. I think we'll see a little bit more innovation as the format progresses. There's some other cool partners that you can do with Zamazenta, but right now it's all about these two types of Zam teams doing relatively well at the moment. All right, so with the Kyogre squads, really it just comes down to one kind of question. Do you want the Tailwind offensive mode, or do you want the slower Calm Mind mode? So if we're going to look at the Calm Mind mode, it looks like this. This is obviously the Oliver Escalin team. I just combined two words there. And it's probably the most successful Kyogre team right now. So you have ways to set up the Calm Mind. So look at this. You've got double fake out pressure, and then you have the redirection support with the Amoonguss. You still have Tailwind coming out with the Roaring Moon, so you don't think that you're not playing without it. You do have it. And then you have the Urshifu, of course, that can deal big damage in the rain thanks to the Kyogre bringing the rain. So a couple of ideas here. So you have Double Dark here. So you can always have something for the Shadow Rider matchup. The Rillaboom and the Amoonguss, they can be played in the Miraidon / Calyrex Ice Rider games sometimes. So you have to just position them well enough to be able to do so. Your Kyogre is also pretty good into the Ice Rider matchup too. But again, lots of ways to set up the Calm Mind. The only thing is you have to run Origin Pulse and not Water Spout, and we saw the punishment of that in the finals, you know, in Birmingham, where the key Origin Pulse miss more or less decided that set because the game 2 was dropped there. But other than that, it still plays very, very well. You know, you have lots of options for different things. It is a balanced approach. So these games are a little bit slower, but again, you get rewarded for, you know, good positional play, right? And at the same time, if you can not necessarily rely on the Kyogre, if you can even just use, you know, instant Rillaboom with Urshifu, again, just making big trades early on, you know, with fake out Surging Strikes or chip damage to put things in range for the Kyogre to clean up. That's also really good. You can also do Roaring Moon stuff. Tailwind, you know, after a Calm Mind, you know, you can just start clicking Origin Pulses and then, you know, you just sweep there, right? So this is another thing you could do. So like some leads you can do is Amoonguss Kyogre, redirect, set up Calm Mind, fake out, and then set up Calm Mind that way. Or you could do Kyogre Ursh and then just power the Urshifu, you know, with the Scarf and do big damage with Surging Strikes. You could do instant Roaring Moon, you know, fake out, Tailwind, Parting Shot into Ogre. You can do something like that as well. So lots of different combinations that you could do, more or less a support Pokemon, you know, next to an offensive threat, and you know, you just go from there. Something like this is also on the rise, you know, with the Kyogre idea with Archelodon, right? So even though there's no Tornadus here still, you can always play it like this. So this is Mystic Water Kyogre, where you still have Water Spout, but now you have also Origin Pulse and Ice Beam here, so you have the ice coverage too. The Amoonguss, if it runs Pollen Puff, can give you good healing for the Kyogre. And even though there's no quote-unquote Tailwind here, you still have you know, fast mons like Urshifu over here, and then Amoonguss for redirection support. So you still have ways to play, and you do have priority moves coming out here with Dragonite Chenpao, so you can always do something like that. And then the Archelodon is also pretty good, just again mounting up pressure, right? Because when it takes damage, you know, you're getting more value into your body press, which is again a pretty decent way to try and deal with something like Pagos. The Urshifu / Archelodon can also deal with Zamazenta at times. And then at the same time, you also have your Koraidon Weather Changer, you know, with Kyogre. You put decent pressure into the Ice Rider. And then at the same time, you know, you have your Chenpao for those the Sucker Punch pins, forcing a potential Terra, where now something like either Archelodon can just win against a Terra Fairy matchup, or you can body press against the Terra Dark Calyrex. So depending on how they want to play it, those are some ideas that you can do there. Otherwise, this is another more of an offensive route. So again, Torn Ogre, we've seen the classic Tailwind Water Spout leads. Now you take away priority moves against the Kyogre with Fur Grab. So, you know, Grassy Glide and Thunderclap that you can use into Kyogre, you take that away with Fur Grab with the timely switch in. And you still have Chenpao with Urshifu Rillaboom for big physical damage, breaker damage, to try and bust through things and make some good trades. So this way, something like Kyogre and a +1 can finish things in the end game. So a little bit more of an offensive mode with the Trick Room answer, so that's good. Instead of the Roaring Moon, you can also do Iron Jugulus. And the benefit here is you get 100% accurate range. You don't have to worry about Intimidate. And you also get Snarl, which is, again, great at mitigating damage from special attackers. But you still have double Fake Out, Redirection support. You're still running Calm Mind here. It's just a Jugulus instead of a Roaring Moon. So that's one kind of take here. You can also do the Serena Ogre teams where instead of the Furgraph, you run the Serena. And then you put pressure against the Roaring Moons. I'm sorry, the Rillabooms and the Raging Bolts with an Ice type attack in Triple Axle. So that's one way to do it. You can also click Helping Hand Water Spout. And then this is like a Scarf Ogre variant. And the Urshifu Goggles is really good because think about how much Goggles, Rocky Helmet Amoonguss there are. So the Goggles helps you get around the Amoonguss. And then Landorus, Tornadus ideas. Again, some good synergy here, you know, because you have the range. So now your Sandsphere Storms are 100% accurate. Kyogre needs something for the Miraidon. You have it here with Serena and the Ice move, and you also have it here with Landorus and the Sandsphere Storm. The Electabuzz can also help you technically at the same time, you know, because you are an electric type. You can resist electric. You have Follow Me, Redirection, so you can do that and just go from there. But again, this is another way to play the Ogre. So they have a lot of tools. Again, ranging from the Fake Out, Redirection, Pressure to set up your Calm Minds, or you just go faster, you know, with something like Tornadus and just click Water Spouts, or help your Urshifu make some early trades early on and then let the Ogre clean things up in the back. Now, if you want to run Landorus, then Landorus is also pretty good too for that, you know, electric immunity that is always going to be pretty good into Kyogre. But Archelon is also a pretty good partner with Ogre, and don't sleep on it. I think people should play Kyogre Archelon a little bit more. Alright, so with the Koraidon teams here, so basically there's, you know, two main squads, and the first one is the Ditto idea. So the one thing you have to keep in mind with when you play with Koraidon or play against Koraidon, you know, a lot of these builds, they have a little bit of trouble with the Ice Rider matchup. And one way to deal with that is just bring a Ditto and then match up the Ice Rider with an Ice Rider of your own. So to be able to copy a restricted helps the Koraidon a lot, at least, you know, for that particular matchup. You do have enablers, you know, with the, or things that get enabled from the Koraidon here. You have Flutter Mane and Raging Bolt here because both Photosynthesis Mons, they're going to do well in the sun. This one usually wants that speed boost to help you get control with something like Icy Wind, and sometimes they run Sunny Day just to be able to run Manual Sun against Prankster Tailwind or Prankster Rain Dance ideas. Raging Bolt also does well here. And one thing to get the weather back on your side is to, you know, hard switch the Koraidon on one side and then click Volt Switch on the Raging Bolt and get the Koraidon back in on the other slot and all in the same turn. And then you get the Weather War back. The Ogre Pawn here is, again, another good redirector here with, you know, Follow Me Sturdy stuff. And then we know the patented Flutterfish combination with Fluttermane and Chiyu. You can always lead these two and keep Koraidon in the back, and maybe even just switch out one slot over the other and boost that partner that did not switch out here. So lots of ways to do this. Again, positive matchup into Pagos, decent into Zamazenta 2. You can take away Kyogre Weather, which is nice, and you have answers for the Shadow Rider matchup with Chiyu and a potential Ditto here. The only thing you're going to need a little bit of help with is, of course, that Ice Rider matchup, but this is why Ditto is on this team here. The other way that you can run this is, you know, the Chenpao way with Koraidon Chenpao stuff, and you're still using Raging Bolt, Fluttermane, and Chiyu here, and now the only difference is you're running Amoonguss as opposed to something like an Ogre Pawn over here. But this build also works too. So if you want to boost Koraidon, you know, with your Chenpao stuff, and then be able to take away terrain with Ice Spinner, that which is always going to be really handy against those Miraidon teams. This is one way to deal with it. And then, you know, Raging Bolt and Fluttermane, you know, with Electro Web and Icy Winds, they can help get control for your side. And then Amoonguss is a nice idea for your Trick Room matchup. So again, sometimes you have to work pretty hard with Koraidon teams, but they have had success. You know, some of the stuff is a little bit easier to use than Koraidon, but if you like Koraidon, then you know either of those two squads are gonna work well. Now, can you run the Tailwind support with Tornado slash Whimsicott with Prankster Sunny Day stuff? Yes, you can. I just think the balance stuff is just a little bit better than those type of squads. All right, how about the couple of Groudon teams here? So Groudon has had a little bit of a resurgence this time around in Regulation G with the Ice Rider a little bit lower in usage than normal. This gives way for stuff like Koraidon and Groudon to do well. And this is the Joe build, more or less, you know, with the Jump Love, Sleep Powder, Rage Powder, Tailwind support. This is also Clear Amulet Groudon with the single target ground move and Stomping Tantrum. You can make the argument for high horsepower, of course, but at the same time, if you don't want to miss P-Blades, you gotta click your single target move, and that is where Stomping Tantrum / high horsepower come into play. Heat Crash is also going to be really strong in the sun, and then at the same time, you have Instant that also can help you balance things out with, you know, Fake Out, Will-O-Wisp, and knockoff support, Parting Shot to position. If they want to bring Rillaboom / Urshifu into you, this is where Ogerpon Heartflame can also do something for you, along with Raging Bolt. And this also gets enabled by Sun, Jump Love, Sleep Powder when you need to, Rage Powder when you need to, and of course Encore when you need to force pins. And then this Urshifu, the Dark one, just gives you a positive matchup into the Shadow Rider. So again, the one thing that, you know, similar to Koraidon, the Ice Rider teams can give it some trouble, right? But this is why you do have Terrafire Groudon. You are weak to the ground move now, but again, that is a more suboptimal move than the ice move, the signature ice move that it has. This one is the most recent development for Groudon that people are using right now. We'll call this the Chinese Sun team, as Justin Tang likes to call it, because again, it did come from a Chinese player, but Gouging Fire's on this team, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. You've got you know, Photosynthesis here, and you have the Clear Amulet, so you can't get intimidated. You do get a speed boost if you go the Jolly route, which means you can howl first and make stuff like Urshifu and Shenpao and even your own Groudon do more damage. The Groudon this time does not have the Clear Amulet because it's on the Gouging Fire, and this time it has a bulkier set with Assault Vest, so now you can sit in front of those Astro Barrages, make it a 3-hit KO, and not really have to care all that much. And then you do have Thunder Punch pressure for the Urshifus and the occasional Kyogres. You also have high horsepower here for your single target ground move, so that's good for Groudon here. You are weak to Intimidate, but this is why you have the Howl to kind of outpace that. And then you still have Raging Bolt and Volcarona. So like Volcarona is also a pretty good Zamazenta answer, especially with Rocky Helmet here. Redirection with Rage Powder, Will-O-Wisp, burn things, and then Tailwind make the team go super fast. Because sometimes the Sun is just not enough for Gouging Fire / Raging Bolt over here. But you know you want Shenpao and Urshifu definitely benefiting in the Tailwind, so you can also do that with this Volcarona. But again, it's just a really cool niche for Gouging Fire on a team like this. Like Flare Blitz in the Sun is going to do a lot. Breaking Swipe for more damage mitigation is also, you know, going to be appreciated. And Groudon just sitting in front of all those attackers with all this bulk coming from Assault Vest and the Breaking Swipe, it's going to be hard to remove the Groudon, okay? Because it's so bulky now, and the Gouging Fire can also put out some offense, because again, Flare Blitz in the Sun, I don't care if you're not 252 max investment, it's still going to hurt, and it's still going to pick up one-shots if you don't respect the Pokemon that is clicking set move. All right, so support Volcarona is a little bit better this time around for Groudon. Usually, it was running that Quiver Dance set back in Regulation H, and that set can still work even now a little bit, but with so much base stats running around now, higher power creep, it's just better to go a little bit more bulkier and a little bit more supportive, and that's exactly what this Volcarona is designed to do for this team. So lots of leads that you can do with Gouging Fire besides Groudon. You can do Groudon Ursh, Groudon Shenpao, Gouging Fire, Gouging Fire Ursh, Gouging Fire Shenpao here for the Howl support. Let these guys do more damage. And then you can also do like Raging Bolt Volcarona stuff where you can slow the game down, you know, keep clicking Will-O-Wisps, and also just chipping things away with Thunderclap and Thunderbolt, and you know, stuff like Groudon and Ursh and Shenpao can just finish games off sometimes technically, right? So those are the two main types of Groudon teams. So if you want to use Groudon, I highly recommend those two squads. I will give one honorable mention to the Zacian squad here. So this is a sample team from from Birmingham here. It's the Regidrago stuff. So you got Whimsicott here that can do Tailwind and then Dragon Energy stuff. If things want the Terra Fairy in front of this, then they're weak to the Behemoth Blade from the Zacian in the end game. Terra Ground, of course, to outspeed Miraidon and one-shot it with Terra Ground, Terra Blast, if you have that option there. Otherwise, if it Terra Fairies, then you just click Behemoth Blade and it dies. The Ditto here, of course, gives you that free restricted because sometimes Zacian is just not enough. And then the Chiyu here just lets Regidrago do a little bit more damage. It gives you a decent matchup into the Shadow Rider and the Ice Rider matchup, of course. And then the Ogerpon Wellspring. You know, you don't really see too much of the Wellspring this time around. I figured you can do something like something else in the slot here, but you do get a Firewater Grass core. So again, follow me, Horn Leech, Ivy Cudgel. So a little bit more of a supportive Wellspring that can still dish out decent damage over here, all things considered. But again, you still have that follow me support that you can use to protect your allies over here. The only thing that sometimes I don't like with squads like this is you don't have a way to stop priority, you know, against the Regidrago, which can be okay because you do have a Wellspring over here. So as long as they don't have like some really, you know, fancy big spread move, the Dragos should be okay. But I did always want to shout out some of the lesser teams that can still do well here. And the Zacian squad with Regidrago is a team that does fit that description there. So we give them the honorable mention. All right, folks, so that's it. So those are some of the best teams that you can use right now in Regulation G pre-San Antonio Regionals. If you are competing tomorrow, again, we wish you luck. Otherwise, if you still need something last minute or if you didn't lock in your team yet, you know, go ahead and grab one of these. Otherwise, if we covered something, you know, for a particular matchup that maybe you didn't think of, hopefully some of the information that we've given out can help you with some of your last minute prep, right? Even though it is tomorrow. All right, so that's it. We'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and enjoy the regional.